The first thing Lyra learned as a child was silence. Silence kept her alive. Silence kept her unseen. Silence stopped the beatings from lasting longer. By 18, silence had become her skin. That morning, as she scrubbed the stone floor of the east courtyard, she kept her head down, her eyes on the ground, moving quickly but not too quickly, just enough to avoid notice. The air tasted of smoke, iron, and the cold promise of winter. The pack moved around her like she didn't exist. The perfect Omega. Look at her, someone whispered. She still limps from last week. Seraphine should have finished her off. Lyra didn't react. She never did. But today, something in the air felt wrong, thick, heavy, sharp like a knife against her throat. And then she heard the voice she feared most. Well, Luna, Seraphine purred, her heels clicking like a countdown to execution. The little rat is right where she belongs. Lyra's shoulders stiffened, but she kept her head bowed. Luna, she whispered. Don't call me that, Seraphine snapped. You aren't worthy of saying my title. A hush fell across the courtyard as wolves gathered, drawn by her cruelty like moths to flame. Seraphine loved an audience. She craved fear the way wolves craved blood. So, Seraphine said, circling Lyra like a predator, I hear rumors. Her voice was loud, sweet, poisoned. Rumors that my mate caught you stealing glances at him while you cleaned the dining hall yesterday. Lyra froze. She hadn't looked at Alpha Cyrus. She never looked at any wolf higher than Omega. Looking at an alpha could get you whipped, or worse. I didn't, Lyra whispered. I swear. Liar. The word slammed into her. She flinched. Seraphine clapped her hands once, sharply. 2 guards dragged a metal bucket forward. Steam rose from it. No. Not again. Not with silver. Seraphine dipped a ladle into the bucket. You want to seduce an alpha? Let me give you something to remember. Lyra's heart pounded so loud she couldn't hear anything else. Please, she whispered. I didn't. It doesn't matter, Seraphine hissed. I decide your truth. She grabbed Lyra by the hair and yanked her head up. Wolves gasped when Lyra's face was revealed, thin, bruised, hollow, the mark of years of torment. Seraphine lifted the ladle slowly, letting the liquid drip back into the bucket. The smell hit Lyra first, silver-infused acid. No, please, Luna, I didn't. You breathe in the same air as my mate, Seraphine said lightly. That's reason enough. And then the liquid hit her. Fire. Agony. Death. Lyra screamed until her voice broke, her throat ripped raw. The acid tore through her cheek, her jaw, her shoulder, eating through flesh like it was nothing. The crowd watched silently. Omegas had no rights. No voice. No one stepped forward. Seraphine smiled with satisfaction. Look at the mighty traitor's daughter now. Lyra collapsed, clutching her face, shaking. She wanted to die. Her wolf, silent for years, didn't even whimper. String her up, Seraphine said lazily. Let everyone see. She stopped. The air changed. The temperature dropped so sharply frost formed on the ground. Breath turned white. Wolves looked around in terror as the courtyard fell into utter, unnatural quiet. Something ancient was approaching. A shadow stretched across the stone. A power so strong every wolf fell to their knees without being commanded. Even Alpha Cyrus dropped, trembling. Only Seraphine remained standing, barely. What is this? She whispered. Lyra couldn't open her remaining eye. But she felt it, a presence like winter itself descending. Boot steps echoed in the silence. Heavy. Slow. Controlled. A voice like ice and thunder filled the courtyard. What, it growled, is happening here? The Winter King had arrived. Alpha King Draven Arcturus. The most feared wolf in all territories. Lyra's world blurred through pain. All she knew was cold, and footsteps approaching, and the pack trembling like leaves in a storm. Draven's aura was suffocating, dominance so powerful it made the air difficult to breathe. He stopped in front of Seraphine. I asked a question, Draven said. His tone didn't rise. Didn't need to. Explain. Seraphine trembled, bowing her head. Your Majesty, this Omega, She tried to seduce my mate. I was disciplining her. Disciplining? Draven repeated quietly, studying the bucket on the ground. With silver acid. Wolves shuddered. It's just an omega, Seraphine insisted. She has no. She's a wolf. His voice cracked like a whip. Even the stones seemed to shake. Draven finally turned his gaze to Lyra. She felt his presence like ice on her skin. She forced her head down, unable to look at him. Looking at an alpha king was suicide. But he lowered himself to a crouch beside her. Let me see, he said softly. She shook her head, she didn't want him to see the horror of her ruined face. Look at me, he repeated. Her instinct screamed to obey. She lifted her head slowly, painfully. The king froze. His pupils blew wide. His breath hitched. His chest rose sharply as if punched. The air hummed with something electric and alive. No, he whispered. No. That's not possible. Seraphine paled. Your Majesty. Draven didn't answer. He reached out slowly, like she might break, and touched her shoulder. A blast of light shot through them both. The bond. The mate bond. A bond stronger than destiny. Draven inhaled sharply, a sound between a gasp and a growl. Mine, he whispered. His wolf pushed through his voice, deeper and primal. Mate. Gasps exploded around the courtyard. Seraphine stumbled back. No. No. She's an omega. You can't. Draven rose to his full height, towering over the pack. You poured acid on my mate. Lyra couldn't breathe. Mate. No. No, it couldn't be. She felt nothing. No bond. No warmth. No connection. Nothing. She was too broken. Draven looked down at her again, and for a moment, something almost like heartbreak flickered in his eyes. You can't feel it, he said quietly. Lyra shook her head slowly. Her throat burned. She couldn't speak. Seraphine seized the moment. See. She's defective. Broken. She. Draven didn't even look at her. 3 years, he said coldly. She has been here 3 years, and this is her condition? No one answered. 3 years, he roared, and you tortured a child who should have been protected. Wolves whimpered. He looked back at Lyra, scarred, shaking, bleeding. His expression shifted to something dangerous and absolute. You're coming with me, he said. And Lyra's life ended in the pack that never wanted her and began in the kingdom of the Winter King. Lyra woke to warmth. Soft blankets. Slow breathing. The scent of pine and snow. For a moment, she wondered if she had died. Then she heard footsteps. Raven, a tall woman with braids and sharp features, stepped into the room carrying a tray. You're awake, Raven said softly. Good. The king has been waiting. Lyra tried to sit up. Pain shot through her body. She winced. Raven hurried over. Slow. You were half dead when he brought you here. He hasn't left the palace since. Lyra blinked at her. He. The king. Why? Raven must have seen her confusion because she added gently. He's your mate. Lyra flinched. Raven tilted her head. You didn't know. Lyra shook her head, barely. Well, Raven said after a long pause, that explains the way he's been pacing like a caged storm. The door opened. And the storm entered. Draven stepped inside, filling the room with his presence. His silver eyes locked onto Lyra immediately, as if she were the only thing in the world. Raven bowed slightly. Your Majesty. Leave us, Draven said quietly. Raven left without argument. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the room. Lyra curled into herself, unsure, terrified, confused. Draven approached slowly, as though approaching a wounded animal. Lyra, he said. Her name sounded like a prayer and a vow. She trembled. He sat beside her, not touching, but close enough that she felt the heat radiating from him. I frightened you, he said. I'm sorry. She shook her head frantically. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of being worthless, disappointing him, failing him. Your wolf, Draven continued, voice thick with frustration, she's silent. I can feel almost nothing from your side of the bond. Lyra swallowed, touching her throat. She wished she could speak. He understood. "You don't have to talk," he said softly. "Not yet." Then he hesitated before asking the question that clearly tormented him. "You truly can't feel it? Not even a spark?" Lyra shook her head again. Draven's jaw tightened. For the first time, he looked almost lost. "I don't understand," he whispered. "Mate bonds never fail." "Never." His voice cracked on the word. "Except now. With you." Her vision blurred with tears. She wasn't enough. She wasn't whole. She wasn't the mate he deserved. Draven suddenly reached out, not touching her, just hovering his hand above hers. "I won't reject you," he said firmly. "Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever." Lyra's breath hitched. "You think you're broken," he went on softly. "But I saw you in that courtyard. You endured pain that would have killed most wolves. You didn't break." She shook her head. She had broken. Years ago. Draven gently took her hand, his touch featherlight. "Let me help you heal. Not because you're my mate, but because no one should suffer what you did." A tear slid down Lyra's cheek. Draven wiped it away with his thumb. "I'll fix this," he vowed. "I'll fix everything they stole from you." Lyra wanted to believe him. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something terrifying. He meant every word. Lyra woke again sometime in the late afternoon, her body aching but clean and wrapped in soft blankets. The pain had dulled since morning, but her face still pulsed with heat where the acid had eaten through her skin. When her eyes focused, she saw a healer sitting near her bed, a young woman with warm brown eyes and a collection of glowing crystals on the table beside her. "You're awake," the healer said gently. "Good. I'm healer Myra. I've been treating you since the king brought you in." Lyra nodded weakly. Myra hesitated, then said in a low voice, "I have never seen injuries like yours. Silver, acid, burning, and still you survived. Most wolves wouldn't." Lyra looked down at her hands. She didn't feel strong. She felt like one breath could shatter her. Before she could respond, the door opened. King Draven entered, no guards, no advisors, just him. His eyes immediately found Lyra, scanning her as if confirming she was still alive. "How is she?" he asked Myra. "She's stable," Myra answered. "But, Your Majesty, there is something you should see." Myra picked up a glowing crystal and held it over Lyra's chest. The crystal lit up, not with the usual gentle light used to detect healing, but with a harsh, fractured glow. Draven frowned. "What does that mean?" Myra took a breath. "It means her wolf is there, but barely connected. Something has severed the bond between her human side and her wolf side." Lyra stiffened. Draven went still. "Explain," he said, voice like a blade. Myra swallowed. "This is not natural. It isn't trauma alone. Someone performed a ritual on her, one that should be forbidden everywhere." Lyra's breath hitched. Her hands trembled. She shook her head, trying to push the memories away. Draven stepped closer. "What ritual?" Myra hesitated. "The severing ritual." The king's entire body tensed. "That ritual," he said slowly, "is punishable by death." "Exactly," Myra said. "Because it cuts a wolf from their own soul." Lyra closed her eyes, shaking. She remembered the basement. The symbols drawn on her skin. The witch whispering in a language she didn't understand. The moment her wolf screamed and then went silent. Draven's voice softened. "Lyra, who did this to you?" Lyra motioned for paper. Myra handed her a notebook. She wrote with shaking hands. "Seraphine. And her witch. Years ago." Draven read the words, and the room temperature dropped so sharply Myra gasped. Frost crawled across the floor. The candles flickered. Draven clenched his jaw. His voice was low, calm, dangerously calm. "They didn't just abuse you," he said. "They stole from you." Lyra blinked, confused. Myra nodded. "The severing doesn't destroy the wolf's power. It redirects it." Lyra froze. "Redirected, to whom?" Draven answered for her. "To Seraphine." The realization hit Lyra like a punch. The reason Seraphine's magic was unnaturally strong. The reason she could dominate the pack so easily. The reason she'd become Luna despite being barely powerful enough before. She had been carrying Lyra's stolen power. Lyra's chest tightened. The air felt too thick to breathe. Draven reached out and gently touched her arm. "You were never Omega," he said softly. "You were never weak." Lyra stared at him, shaken. "You're a Dawn Guardian," he continued. "The last of them." Lyra shook her head, tears sliding down her cheek. Guardians were the stuff of legend, wolves chosen by the moon to protect truth and balance. They were rare, sacred, hunted by enemies of the crown. "Me," she wrote. "No. I'm no one." Draven knelt beside her bed. "Someone wanted you powerless," he said gently. "And they succeeded, for a time." His fingers brushed her hand, steadying her trembling. "But I won't let them keep what is yours." Lyra's throat tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe she could ever be whole again. Then he said something that made her freeze. The bond would have helped. His eyes held a rare softness. "If you could feel it, your wolf might recognize itself again." Lyra looked away, ashamed. "I can't," she wrote. "I'm sorry." Draven's expression tightened, not with anger, but with pain he tried to hide. "Don't be sorry," he said softly. "Not for surviving." They were quiet for a moment, the air thick with things neither of them could say. Then Draven stood, facing Myra. "Find me a spellcaster capable of reversing a severing. Search every territory. Spare no expense." Myra bowed quickly. "Yes, Your Majesty." Draven turned back to Lyra. "We will fix this," he promised. "No matter how long it takes." Lyra watched him leave, her heart pounding. For the first time in years, she felt something flicker inside her. Not her wolf. Hope. Lyra wasn't prepared for the council chamber. It was enormous. Cold. Built of black stone that reflected no light. Dozens of nobles sat around a long obsidian table, all dressed in rich fabrics and sharp expressions. They stared at Lyra with open disgust as guards pushed her wheelchair to the king's side. Her bandaged face, her frail body, her silence, it all seemed to offend them. Draven stood at the head of the table, radiating power so intense the torches flickered. "You have all seen the reports," he said. "The Omega the Luna tortured is my fated mate." Gasps. Murmurs. Whispers of impossible, unacceptable, a disgrace to the crown. A tall noble with silver hair stood. "Your Majesty, with respect, mate bonds do not occur with Omegas of unknown bloodlines. She must have used dark magic." Draven's eyes flashed dangerously. "Speak carefully, Lord Halvar." The noble swallowed but continued, "It is unprecedented. We believe she may be a threat to the throne." Draven cut him off. "She is a Dawn Guardian." Silence. The entire chamber froze. A woman with ruby earrings shook her head violently. "Impossible. Dawn Guardians were wiped out nearly 2 decades ago." Lyra flinched. Her family. Burned alive in their home. She remembered the flames. The screams. She had been 11. Draven spoke before the memories swallowed her. "Her wolf was severed," he said, his voice hard. "A forbidden act used to steal power and leave the victim broken." The nobles paled. "If anything," Draven continued, "she is the victim of dark magic, not the perpetrator." A noblewoman sneered. "Even so, she cannot feel the bond. That means she cannot fulfill her role as your Luna." Lyra's chest tightened. Another added sharply, "She is too damaged. The kingdom needs a strong Luna, not a broken one." Draven's aura exploded. Frost crawled up the walls. Chairs trembled. Breath misted in the air. "Do not call her broken," he growled. Wolves shrank back. He stepped forward, voice low and lethal. "She survived torture no wolf should endure. She survived a ritual meant to kill. She survived without her wolf, without allies, without a voice." He looked at Lyra then, not with pity, but with reverence. "That is strength." Lyra felt her heart ache. Then Lord Halvar made a mistake. "Even if she is your mate, Your Majesty," he said carefully, "a guardian cannot serve as Luna if she cannot feel the bond. The law requires." "The law," Draven interrupted, does not decide my mate. His silver eyes swept across the room. The moon decides. Nobles fell silent. But one voice rose again, a voice Lyra recognized. Princess Ilara, Draven's younger sister. She stood with poised elegance, but her eyes were sharp as knives. Brother, she said calmly, we are not questioning the goddess. We are questioning whether this girl, she gestured to Lyra, can stand at your side. She cannot shift. She cannot speak. She cannot feel the bond. How can she lead a kingdom? Draven's jaw tightened. She is healing. Ilara raised an eyebrow. Is she? Or are we risking everything, your throne, your legacy, on a girl who may never recover? Lyra felt the words like blows. Draven exhaled slowly, fighting for control. She is my mate. She is a liability, Ilara said bluntly. Lyra's throat closed. Shame flooded her. She lowered her head. Draven's voice dropped to a soft, terrifying calm. Ilara, stand down. But Ilara didn't move. She will be rejected by nobles. By other packs. By allies. And if your enemies learn you are bound to a damaged guardian, they will. Draven slammed his hand on the table, cracking the obsidian. Ilara. She fell silent. The entire room waited, breathless. Draven stepped to Lyra's side. Slowly, deliberately, he placed his hand over hers. And with a voice that shook the chamber, he said, I would go to war for her. Nobles recoiled. Lyra stared at his hand covering hers, her heart trembling violently. Draven faced the council. She will remain in the palace. Under my protection. Under my authority. Anyone who questions her place questions the goddess herself. No one spoke. No one dared. Draven leaned down toward Lyra, his voice meant only for her. You may not feel the bond, he whispered, but I do. Every moment. Every breath. Lyra's fingers trembled under his. His hand tightened, gently. I won't leave you behind, he promised softly. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest, a flicker of something that had been dead for years. Not her wolf. But something close. And when Draven guided her out of the chamber, she whispered a single voiceless thought to herself. Maybe I'm not alone anymore. The days after the council meeting passed in a blur of healing spells, whispered conversations, and the quiet tension of a palace trying to adjust to Lyra's presence. Draven assigned 2 gentle palace maids to her, Kala and Vila, who helped her bathe, dress, and eat while her face and shoulder slowly recovered from the acid burns. The palace healers came every morning to apply salves and inspect her wounds. She rarely spoke, it still hurt too much to try. Instead she used a small notebook to communicate. Draven visited her room at least twice a day, sometimes more. He never stayed long, his responsibilities as king pulled him in every direction, but every time he entered the room, the air changed. Warmer. Heavier. As if her world suddenly had gravity again. Lyra didn't understand why the king treated her so gently. She didn't understand how a man like him, powerful, feared, untouchable, could look at her with such patience. But she was grateful. And terrified. Her quiet life in the palace shattered the morning she tried to stand. Kala was changing her bandages while Vila cleaned the room. Lyra brushed her fingertips across the notebook, preparing to write that she wanted to try practicing walking again. She swung her legs off the bed. Slowly. Carefully. Her legs trembled but held. Lyra? Kala asked, startled. Should we help you? You're still healing. Lyra shook her head gently and pushed herself upright. She took one step. Then another. She felt dizzy, but she kept going. A strange heat rose through her body, warm, glowing, like a pulse that didn't belong to her. She placed a hand over her stomach, frowning. The room spun. Lyra? Vila said, alarmed. What's wrong? Lyra didn't get to answer. Her knees buckled. The last thing she heard before darkness swallowed her was Kala screaming for help. When she woke, her vision was blurry and her head felt stuffed with fog. She was lying on one of the healer's tables, the smell of herbs thick in the air. Draven's voice reached her before her eyes fully opened. I warned the council we shouldn't push her, she's still recovering. Your Majesty, Myra's voice interrupted calmly, This is not from exhaustion. Draven's voice sharpened. Then what is it? A strange pressure built in Lyra's chest. Myra hesitated before saying, I think. She fainted because her body is trying to adjust to something new. Lyra blinked as Myra came into view. The healer looked nervous. Too nervous. Lyra, Myra said slowly. I need you to stay calm. Lyra's heart hammered. Draven stepped closer, his hand subconsciously reaching for hers but stopping an inch away, as if afraid she'd pull back. What happened to her? He demanded. Myra took a breath. Lyra is pregnant. Silence. The words didn't feel real. They echoed inside Lyra's skull like someone else had spoken them. She sat frozen, unable to think, unable to move. Draven's face, however, changed instantly. His breath caught. His shoulders stiffened. His eyes widened in a rare moment of pure shock. What? He whispered. Myra nodded. I confirmed it twice. Draven's voice dropped, rough and shaken. Pregnant, with my child. Lyra felt the world tilt. She stared at him, her heart pounding violently. Pregnant. Ha! She couldn't even feel her wolf, couldn't feel the bond, and yet. Myra swallowed hard. Your Majesty, the part you must understand is this should be impossible. Draven's gaze snapped to her. Explain. Myra stepped back and picked up a glowing crystal. Her body shows signs of protective magic. Strong magic, guardian magic. Something dormant in her is awakening to protect the life growing inside her. Draven's expression hardened. But how? The bond is incomplete. That's exactly why this shouldn't be happening, Myra said. Mate bonds are required for conception. Without the wolf, without the bond, she shouldn't be able to. Lyra lowered her hand to her stomach, stunned. A child. A child inside her? A child with the king? Her breaths came fast. Too fast. Draven knelt beside the healer table, taking her trembling hand in his. Lyra, he whispered, eyes searching hers, tell me if you're afraid. Tears welled in her eyes. She shook her head, then nodded, then shook again. She didn't know how she felt. Everything was overwhelming. He cupped her cheek gently, avoiding the burned areas. I won't let anything harm you, he said. Or our child. Lyra's lips trembled. She lifted the notebook with shaking fingers. How? Why me? I don't understand. Draven read her words and exhaled slowly. I don't know, he admitted. But I will find out. I will protect you both. Myra cleared her throat. Your Majesty, there's something more. Draven's expression sharpened. What? Myra hesitated. The magic I sense, it's not just awakening. It's fighting. Lyra frowned. Fighting what? Draven asked. Something dark. Myra met his eyes. Something that tried to kill her wolf. Lyra's hand tightened around Draven's. She's not just pregnant, Myra said. Her power is returning. Slowly. Painfully. But the child is acting as a conduit, it's trying to reconnect her to the wolf inside her. Draven stared at Lyra with fierce intensity. This child, he said softly, is saving you. Lyra's chest filled with a strange mixture of fear and warmth. A child, you protecting her? A child she didn't ask for, didn't expect, didn't think she deserved. Draven touched her stomach lightly, reverently. I already love this child, he murmured, because it's part of you. Lyra's breath hitched. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't drowning in darkness. Something small and fragile inside her was pulling her toward the light. Night fell over the winter palace, and with it came a storm. Thunder rumbled through the sky. Wind lashed against the stone walls like a creature trying to claw its way in. Lyra lay in her bed, wrapped in blankets, staring at the ceiling shadows swirling like ink. Her stomach felt warm. Different. As if something inside her pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She barely slept. Every time she drifted off, she heard faint whispers, familiar, haunting. Lyra. I'm here. Come back. Her wolf. The voice was faint, like coming through broken glass, but it was there. At dawn, she jolted awake, sweating. Her wolf's voice had faded, but the warmth in her stomach remained strong, comforting. Calla entered with breakfast. "Good morning, my lady." Lyra still wasn't used to being called my lady, but she gave a small nod. Calla set down a tray of fruit, bread, and broth. "You didn't sleep," Calla said softly. Lyra shook her head. "Are you hurting?" Vila asked from the doorway. Lyra hesitated before writing. "No. Just different." Vila smiled gently. Different can be good. But the truth was more complicated. Around noon, Draven arrived. He entered her room with the same energy as always, like a storm in human form, and sat beside her bed. "Lyra," he said softly, "I need to talk to you about last night." Lyra's stomach tightened. "What I didn't mention in front of Myra," he continued, "is that I felt something too." Lyra's eyebrows rose. Draven leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I felt your emotions. For the first time." Lyra blinked. "What?" "When you were asleep," he said, "I felt fear. And then, something else. Something warm." Lyra flushed. Draven's expression softened. "The bond is awakening." Very slowly. Lyra's heartbeat quickened. This meant her wolf was still fighting to return. Draven continued, "I want to help you reconnect with her. But it will hurt." Lyra stiffened. Draven touched her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "We won't rush," he said. "But we need to try." Lyra nodded. She wasn't afraid, not with him there. They moved to the balcony overlooking the snowy forest. Draven placed her hands in his touch steady and grounding. "I'm going to channel my wolf," he said. "Just enough for you to feel him." Lyra took a deep breath. Draven closed his eyes. A cold gust blew through the balcony. Frost shimmered on the railing. His aura expanded, powerful and ancient. Lyra felt it immediately. A deep pull. A quiet vibration inside her chest. Something familiar, leaning toward something lost. Her heart raced. Her breath stuttered. And then, something inside her shattered. Not in pain, but like breaking open. A flash of fire burst behind her eyes. Pain flooded her body, white-hot and overwhelming. She dropped to her knees with a silent scream. "Lyra!" Draven caught her, pulling her against his chest. "It's okay. I've got you. Stay with me." Her vision blurred. She couldn't breathe. Flashes assaulted her mind. The basement. The witch's chant. Seraphine laughing. Hands holding her down. Her wolf screaming. And then silence. Lyra sobbed silently as her body shook uncontrollably. Draven held her tighter. "It's the memories. Your wolf is trying to break through them." Lyra curled into him, trembling. The warmth in her stomach grew stronger, pulsing through her like a heartbeat. Her child. Her child was pushing back the darkness. Suddenly, the pain shifted. It concentrated in her chest, burning, clawing, then spreading down her spine. A faint voice whispered in her mind. "Lyra. I'm coming. I'm coming back." Lyra gasped silently, tears streaming down her face. Draven cupped the back of her head, his voice trembling with emotion. "You're doing it. You're fighting. I'm here. I'll hold you through all of it." Time lost meaning. She didn't know how long the pain lasted, minutes, hours, but when it finally eased, she lay exhausted in Draven's arms, shaking but alive. Draven kissed her hair. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. Lyra opened her heavy eyes and slowly wrote. "I heard her." Draven froze. His breath left him in a rush. You heard your wolf?" Lyra nodded weakly. A smile broke across Draven's face, small, but real. The kind of smile he had never shown anyone else. "That means she's alive," he said softly. "Your wolf is alive." Lyra's chest filled with warmth. For years, she had believed she was dead inside. Now, for the first time, she felt a tiny flame flickering back to life. The palace felt different as the blood moon approached. Uneasy. Restless. Like the stones themselves were holding their breath. Lyra could feel it too every night. Her wolf whispered faintly through the cracks of darkness inside her. The voice grew stronger with each passing day, like the child inside her was building a bridge back to her soul. Still, The connection was fragile. Thin as spider silk. One wrong moment and it could snap. Draven knew this. He stayed close. Stayed steady. Stayed watchful. But the palace around them was shifting. Wolves bowed to Lyra now when she passed. Some out of respect. Many out of fear. A few out of resentment. Lyra felt all of it. And she hated being seen. She wasn't ready. She wasn't whole. Draven, however, kept her close to his side, his hand always hovering near hers, his body acting instinctively as a shield. He wasn't ashamed of her. He wasn't afraid of whispers. And that made the palace wolves whisper even more. The morning of the blood moon, Draven gathered his highest-ranking wolves for a strategy meeting. The moon's rise always brought increased danger, dark creatures stirred, rogue packs grew wilder, and magic loosened at the edges. Lyra sat quietly beside him, notebook in hand, although she rarely wrote more than a few words. Her thoughts were often too heavy to fit on paper. Cassian, Draven's beater, stood to the left of the king. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and always polite with Lyra, but distant. Too distant. Lyra's wolf whispered a warning the moment he entered the room. She didn't understand it, but she felt it. A cold tug in her chest. A sense of danger. A wrongness. Draven began the meeting. Tonight's blood moon will amplify all magic structures. Wards must be reinforced. Patrols doubled. Your Majesty, Cassian interrupted gently, are you certain we should keep Lady Lyra inside the palace? The blood moon might disrupt her healing. Lyra stiffened. Draven gave him a quiet, dangerous look. She is safer under my eyes. Cassian bowed slightly. Of course, sire. I only worry her condition makes her vulnerable. Lyra's grip tightened around her notebook. Draven's voice sharpened. She is not weak. Cassian didn't argue. But his eyes flicked toward Lyra with a shadow of something she didn't understand. As soon as the meeting dismissed, Draven leaned closer to her. Are you all right? Lyra nodded. Then wrote. Cassian watches me too closely. Draven's eyes narrowed. I've noticed. Lyra hesitated, then wrote again. I feel wrong around him. Draven stared at the words, his jaw tightening. That's enough for me, he murmured. I'll keep him at a distance tonight. The blood moon rose like a wound in the sky. Red. Heavy. Terrifying. Magic pulsed through the palace like a heartbeat gone wild. The wards flickered. The air shimmered with tension. Wolves avoided the corridors, only patrol teams moving with rigid strides. Lyra felt her wolf humming inside her chest. Not pain. Not fear. But readiness. Draven ordered 2 guards to stay outside her room while he checked the ward lines around the palace perimeter. I won't be far, he promised, brushing his fingers against her cheek. If you feel anything wrong, anything at all, you call for me through the bond. Even a whisper, I will hear it. Lyra nodded. He kissed her forehead, something he rarely allowed himself to do, and left. The room felt too quiet without him. Lyra sat on the bed, rubbing her stomach gently. Warmth pulsed beneath her palm. The child was calm tonight. But her wolf wasn't. Lyra, danger, danger. Her breath hitched. She looked toward the door. Silence. Then. A scream. It came from the hallway. One of the guards. Lyra stood instantly, heart pounding. The second scream came half a second later. Then silence. Heavy. Wrong. Final. Lyra backed away from the door, her chest tightening in panic. Draven, she tried to call through the bond. Something's wrong. But the bond felt muted. Strangled by the blood moon's magic. Footsteps echoed. Slow. Steady. Confident. The door handle turned. Lyra scrambled backward until she hit the wall, trembling. The door opened. Cassian stepped inside. His expression was calm. Too calm. Forgive me, my lady, he said quietly. I didn't want it to come to this. Lyra shook her head violently. Her hands trembled as she grabbed her notebook. What do you want? She scribbled. Cassian sighed. The kingdom deserves a strong Luna. Not a broken guardian. Not a girl whose power could destroy us if it returns. Lyra's stomach twisted. Draven is blind, Cassian continued. He sees you as a wounded creature he must protect. But he has forgotten the truth. He stepped closer. Lyra pressed herself against the wall. You are a threat. And threats must be contained. Lyra's wolf snarled inside her, the first burst of true fury she'd felt in years. Cassian reached into his jacket and pulled out a glass orb glowing with dark runes. This will hold you for now, he said. And soon my ally will claim what lies inside you. Lyra's blood ran cold. Her child. Cassian lifted the orb. A blast of fire erupted from Lyra's chest. Cassian flew backward, crashing into the wall. Lyra stared, stunned, her hands trembling. Her child's magic had answered her fear. A deep growl echoed inside her mind. You will not touch our child, her wolf whispered fiercely. Cassian staggered to his feet, fury replacing calm. So, he hissed, the rumors were true. The child awakens your power. He lunged. Lyra threw her hands up instinctively. A shield of blazing light exploded outward, slamming Cassian back into the door so hard it splintered. Lyra gasped, stumbling back. Her power. Her wolf. Her child. All fighting. All waking. Cassian wiped blood from his mouth. Your power belongs to someone greater, he snarled. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve him. He lunged again. And the door behind him shattered into ice. Draven stood in the doorway. His eyes were no longer silver. They glowed white. Glacial. Deadly. Otherworldly. Cassian, he said in a voice colder than death, step away from my mate. Cassian tried to speak some excuse, some twisted justification, but Draven didn't give him a chance. He seized Cassian by the throat, slamming him into the wall with such force dust fell from the ceiling. You betrayed me, Draven whispered. Cassian clawed at his hand. She's unstable, dangerous. Eno, Draven roared, the palace shaking, frost ripping across the floor, you are dangerous. Cassian's face twisted. You're blinded, by a broken girl, by a mistake. Draven struck him across the face, the blow cracking bone. Lyra is not a mistake. Cassian spat blood. She will bring ruin. Her child will bring ruin. We must. Draven's aura exploded so violently the torches blew out. Lyra trembled behind him, but not in fear. In awe. Draven had never looked so terrifying. Or so protective. You came into my home, Draven said softly, dangerously, attacked my mate, tried to take my heir. His voice dropped to a whisper colder than frostbite. For that, death is mercy. Cassian's eyes widened in terror. Draven, please. Draven didn't respond. He turned Cassian's body into ice with a single pulse of magic. Cassian froze mid-breath, mid-begging. The ice cracked once. Then shattered. Silence fell. Draven turned to Lyra, his expression breaking the moment he saw her trembling. He rushed to her, cupping her face carefully. Are you hurt? He whispered. Tell me. Please. Lyra shook her head quickly, tears welling in her eyes. She grabbed her notebook and wrote with shaking hands. He tried to hurt the child. Draven's breath shuddered. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were everything. I won't let anyone touch you, he murmured fiercely into her hair. Ever. Ever. Lyra buried her face in his shoulder, sobbing silently. Inside her, her wolf whispered with a strength she hadn't heard in years. We're waking, Lyra. And we will never be powerless again. The aftermath of Cassian's betrayal plunged the palace into chaos. Guards ran through the halls. Advisors argued in the war room. Nobles gathered in corners, whispering fearfully about what happened under the blood moon. But one thing was certain. Someone powerful had turned Cassian against the king. And that someone had wanted Lyra's child. Draven doubled the guards around her room. Tripled them. He refused to leave her side unless absolutely necessary, and even then he stayed within the palace walls. Lyra wasn't allowed to walk alone. Not in the hallways. Not in the garden. Not even on the balcony. She hated the restriction but understood it. Something was hunting her. Something that wanted the guardian power growing inside her child. Days passed. Tension remained. One night, as Lyra lay in bed reading over her healer notes, her chest tightened suddenly, painfully. A pulse of heat shot through her spine. She gasped silently, clutching her stomach. Her wolf growled inside her. Lyra, something is wrong, something is calling us. Lyra's breath came in short bursts. She reached for the bond, pushing out a plea. Draven. The door burst open instantly. Draven rushed inside, eyes glowing faintly, aura crackling with tension. What is it? He asked urgently. Tell me what's wrong. Lyra clutched his arm, trembling. She pointed downward, toward the floor. Toward the lower levels of the palace. Draven's expression darkened. What did you feel? Lyra shook her head and grabbed her notebook. Something calling me. Calling us. Below. Deep below. Draven read the words, his jaw tightening. That's impossible, he said quietly. There is only one place below. Lyra waited. Draven swallowed, his voice low. The Vault of Souls. Lyra's stomach twisted. What's there? She wrote quickly. Draven hesitated, then answered. A relic. Ancient. Powerful. Dangerous. It stores the souls of dead guardians and amplifies magic during celestial events. It's supposed to be sealed. No one should be able to reach it. Lyra's heartbeat sped up. Then why is it calling me? Draven looked at her with a mixture of fear and awe. Because you're a guardian, he said softly. The last one left. Lyra's chest tightened. Draven stood abruptly. I'm not letting you go anywhere near it. Not tonight. Not while you're. But Lyra's body spasmed, cutting him off. A surge of glowing warmth flooded her abdomen. Light seeped through her skin, illuminating the room. Draven's eyes widened. Lyra. Her wolf's voice echoed louder than ever. It's awakening. It's ready. We must go. Now. Lyra collapsed. Draven caught her before she hit the floor. Her breath moved in rapid, frantic bursts as the light spread from her stomach up her chest, her throat, her eyes. Lyra. Draven shouted. Stay with me, but she wasn't fading. She was transforming. Her wolf, weakened for years, was fighting to break free. Her wolf needed something. Needed the vault. Lyra forced her eyes open and wrote one final word. Please. Draven stared at the page. Then at her glowing skin. Then at her eyes, filled with pain and desperation. Finally, he gave a sharp nod. Then I'm taking you. The path to the vault was hidden behind layers of magic, guarded doors, and a staircase that spiraled deep into the earth. Draven carried her in his arms, her body trembling against him, her aura pulsing with unstable energy. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Frost formed along the walls. Light from magical torches flickered. The air felt heavy with ancient power. Lyra clung to Draven's tunic, her breath shallow. Finally, they reached a massive sealed door covered in runes. The Vault of Souls. Draven placed his hand on the stone. It glowed in response. The ground rumbled. The door slowly opened. Inside the vault, the air was freezing and burning at the same time. Shadows moved like they were alive. A massive crystal, twice the height of a man, stood in the center of the room, glowing with white-blue light. Lyra's wolf howled inside her. It's here. The stolen pieces. The stolen power. Lyra's heart pounded. She stumbled toward the crystal. Draven caught her arm. Lyra, wait. But the crystal pulsed. A voice echoed from it. Welcome. Guardian. Lyra gasped. Draven tightened his grip. Who's there? The crystal flashed brighter. A figure formed inside, the shape of a woman with long flowing hair and glowing eyes. Lyra recognized her instantly. Her mother. Lyra's knees buckled. Draven held her steady. The glowing figure spoke. The power stolen from you lies in this vault. And so does the truth. Tonight, under the blood moon's echo, the Guardian's power must awaken or darkness will claim your child. Lyra's breath caught. Her child. Her mother lifted a hand toward the crystal wall. Come, Lyra. Take back what is yours. Lyra reached out. The moment her fingers touched the crystal, light exploded. Her body lifted off the ground, suspended in the air. Magic poured into her, burning, healing, breaking, mending. Her wolf roared. Her child glowed. Lyra screamed silently as her past, her power, and her identity crashed into her like a tidal wave of fire and moonlight. Draven called her name, shouting, begging, but she couldn't answer. She wasn't Lyra in that moment. She was a guardian reborn. Her mother's voice echoed one last time. Your battle has only begun. The crystal cracked. The vault shook. Draven reached out to pull her away. But something dark slipped through the cracks behind her. Something ancient. Something waiting. And Lyra felt its icy breath on her neck. The vault shook so violently dust rained from the ceiling. Cracks split across the crystal where Lyra was suspended, glowing like a fallen star. Draven reached for her as the energy flared, but a pulse of force slammed him back against the wall, knocking the breath from his lungs. Lyra. His voice echoed, raw and panicked. Lyra didn't hear him. She was drowning, caught between burning power and freezing darkness. Her body twisted in the air, every muscle taut with agony as magic poured into her, filling the void where her wolf had been severed years ago. Her child glowed beneath her ribs, pulsing like a small sun. That warmth steadied her, kept her from being consumed entirely. Her mother's voice faded. But another voice rose. A deeper one. Older. Hungrier. Found you. Cold seeped across Lyra's spine. I have waited for your awakening, guardian. Lyra tried to move. Tried to scream. Tried to call for Draven. She couldn't. Dark tendrils curled from the shadows behind the cracked crystal. They slithered across the room, ignoring Draven completely, reaching only for her. The ancient thing whispered again. You should not have survived the severing, but I can correct that mistake. A tendril brushed her ankle. Pain exploded through her body. She jerked back instinctively but couldn't escape. The shadows wrapped around her leg, creeping upward like hungry vines. Draven roared and launched himself forward, shifting mid-leap into a monstrous winter-white wolf. His claws scraped against the floor as he lunged at the shadows. But the darkness recoiled from him as though amused. Another tendril cracked him across the chest and sent him flying. He smashed into a pillar, stone crumbling around him. Lyra's heart screamed inside her chest even though she couldn't speak, her soul howled his name. Draven. Her wolf surged violently. Power exploded outward, breaking several tendrils. Light shot from her hands in wild arcs. Her eyes glowed gold-white. And the ancient voice hissed. The child protects you. But it will not be enough. More tendrils stretched across the vault. Draven staggered up, growling, blood dripping from his fur. His eyes were feral but focused only on her. He sprinted through the shadows, weaving through them as they lashed out. He slammed his wolf shoulder against the last tendril holding Lyra and snapped it between his jaws. Lyra fell. Draven shifted mid-movement, catching her in his arms as she collapsed. Her body shook uncontrollably, her breaths sharp and uneven. Lyra, he whispered, his voice cracking. Open your eyes. Stay with me. Her eyelids fluttered weakly. He laid her down gently, brushing her hair back. I thought I lost you, he breathed. She struggled to lift her hand, touching his chest shakily, needing him to know she was still here. Draven's relief was brief. Because the ground trembled again. The crystal behind them shattered completely. Darkness poured out like ink. It formed a shape half smoke, half shadow, with glowing crimson eyes. Draven bared his teeth. The creature laughed, a low, ancient rumble that made the pillars shake. Little Wolf King, it whispered. You cannot kill what is older than your bloodline. Draven's aura exploded, frost racing across the floor. Stay behind me, he whispered to Lyra. But Lyra clutched his arm. Her voice hoarse, broken, barely a whisper, escaped her for the first time in years. Draven, no. Draven froze. She had spoken. Her voice soft, damaged, but real, cut through every sound in the vault. But the shadow surged forward, tendrils stretching toward them. Draven snarled and threw himself in front of her. The dark force slammed into him, sending both of them skidding across the ground, but he managed to stay between the creature and Lyra. He roared a sound that shook the chamber. Lyra, still on the floor, reached toward him, tears streaking down her face as she tried to pull magic forward. Her wolf screamed inside her. "Help him." Lyra's hand ignited with blinding gold fire. She thrust her palm toward the shadow. A beam of guardian light blasted outward, striking the creature square in the chest. It shrieked a terrible, ancient noise and dissolved into mist, fleeing back into the cracks of the broken vault walls. Silence crashed into the chamber. Lyra fell forward, coughing, her body shaking violently. Draven caught her immediately. "You did it," he whispered, holding her close. "You fought it off." Lyra clung to him, trembling uncontrollably as the last of the magic faded. Draven pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm here," he murmured. "You're safe now." But even as his arms tightened around her, they both felt it. The ancient thing was not gone. It was only waiting. Waiting for Lyra. Waiting for the child. Something far bigger had awoken that night. And the kingdom would never be the same. The vault no longer felt like a sacred place. Its shattered crystal, cracked walls, and lingering darkness made it feel like a grave. Draven carried Lyra out of the depths in his arms, refusing to let her stand on her own. Her breaths were still shallow. Sweat covered her skin, and every few minutes she winced as magic flared beneath her ribs. Back in her chambers, the healers rushed around her, but Draven didn't leave her bedside for even a second. "Her body is stabilizing," Myra said, brown eyes worried. "But the magic inside her, it's unpredictable. It's shifting more rapidly than before." Draven brushed a damp strand of hair from Lyra's forehead. "Because the child is growing stronger." Myra hesitated. "Yes. And no." Draven's jaw tightened. "Explain." "The baby is powerful," Myra said softly. "Unnaturally so. But Lyra's power is also returning, her wolf is rebuilding itself. Both energies are colliding inside her body. They are trying to merge, but they're not meant to." Lyra's eyes opened slowly. She looked at Myra, then at Draven, and forced herself to speak again. "Will the baby survive?" Her voice was barely a breath, hoarse and painful. Draven's heart cracked hearing it, but Myra answered first. "Yes," she said. "But only if your body adapts, fast." Lyra's wolf stirred. "We will survive. For the child. For the mate." Lyra nodded faintly. Over the next days, her magic surged in unpredictable waves. Some nights she woke screaming silently as her wolf clawed at the last remnants of the severing ritual. Other nights, she glowed so brightly the entire palace saw the light under her door. During one of the worst surges, she grabbed Draven's arm so hard she left bruises. "Too much," she gasped, unable to breathe. Draven held her tightly. "Take my strength," he whispered. "Take whatever you need." Her wolf snarled inside her, fighting, healing, transforming. And slowly, the bond began to awaken. Not all at once. Not fully. But Draven began to feel her emotions in flickers: fear, warmth, exhaustion, trust. And Lyra began to feel his. Steady. Fierce. Terrified of losing her. One night, as the moon shone high, Lyra felt something different. Not pain. Not magic. Pressure. Strong, rhythmic pressure that made her gasp and clutch her stomach. Draven jolted awake beside her. "Lyra." She couldn't speak. She could only shake her head and point downward. Myra was summoned immediately. One glance and she blanched. "It's happening," she whispered. "She's in labor." Draven's blood ran cold. "Is it too soon?" "Much too soon," Myra answered. "But the children." "Children?" Draven echoed sharply. Myra froze. Lyra blinked. "Children?" Myra exhaled shakily. "I didn't know how to tell you. There are two. Twins." Lyra's breath hitched. Draven stared at Myra in disbelief. "Two," he repeated, his voice a whisper. "She's carrying two." Myra nodded. "The magic spikes, it makes sense now. Two guardian heirs. Two auras." Lyra gasped again as a contraction hit. Draven caught her hand. "I'm here," he murmured. "Breathe with me." The next hours blurred into pain, magic, and terror. Lyra's body convulsed with each contraction. Light flickered across her skin. Draven held her tightly, forcing her to breathe, to stay conscious. At the peak of agony, Lyra screamed, truly screamed, voice ripping out of her throat for the first time in years. Her wolf roared inside her at the same time. The chambers shook. The air trembled. And then, a cry. A newborn cry. Myra lifted the first child, a small boy with a shock of pale hair and glowing frost-blue eyes. Draven's breath broke. He touched the baby with trembling fingers. "My son." But Lyra wasn't done. Pain ripped through her again, worse, deeper, as if fire burned through her bones. Myra gasped as the room lit with gold. "Another one," she said breathlessly. "The second." And then, a second cry pierced the air. A little girl, her eyes glowing molten gold, her hair shimmering like moonlight. Lyra collapsed back onto the pillows, sobbing breathlessly, her body shaking. Draven kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her trembling hands. "You did it," he whispered, tears in his voice. "You gave me everything." Myra cleaned the babies and swaddled them before placing them gently into Lyra's arms. Lyra looked down at them, her heart swarming with warmth so strong it nearly hurt. The boy opened his blue eyes. Frost formed in the air around him. The girl opened her golden eyes. A small spark of moonfire flickered at her fingertips. Draven stared in awe. "They're blessed," Myra whispered. "One by winter. One by the moon." Lyra could barely hear her. She only saw her children, her miracles, nestled against her chest. Draven wrapped his arms around them all. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt whole. But far away, in the darkness beyond the palace, a shadow watched the moon through ancient eyes. The voice that whispered from the vault breathed. "The Guardian has returned. And the heirs are born. Perfect." Its presence curled like smoke. Everything is unfolding as destiny demands. And the true battle had not yet begun. If this chapter grabbed your heart, please give it a like, it really helps the channel grow. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're here when the next chapter drops. Because trust me, the story is only getting more intense from here.